everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. For today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to talk to you about 5 middle grade books or series that were my favorites when I was a middle grader. First up, we have The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. In this book, we follow Milo, who is pretty bored with life. Then, a toll booth appears in his room one day, and he decides to use it. It brings him to another land where his bored view of the world is challenged. This was a book that was read to me by my 5th grade teacher, and it is one that I have read numerous times on my own over the years since then. I just love this book. I fell in love with the world that Milo travels to and getting to see all of the interesting characters he meets along the way and all of the ways that this new land he's in is different from the world that he is used to. It was really interesting getting to see him kind of break out of his boredom and really get into this new world and the people there and grow to care about these people and really to get to see his adventure that he goes on in this book. This is always going to be one of my faves, and I enjoy it every single reread. Next is My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. In this book, we follow a young boy named Sam who runs away from home and makes a home for himself in the Catskill Mountains. We then see him try to survive out in the wilderness all on his own. One of the things that appeals to me about this book is I think that every kid has threatened to run away at some point or talks about running away, and in this book, Sam actually does it and isn't immediately dragged back to his family. And I think it is interesting to kind of get to live that out vicariously through him. I also think it's really interesting to see his growth throughout the novel and how running away changes him, especially considering he is all on his own. I think it both gives him some independence and gives him a completely different view on the life that he left in both positive and negative ways. I think it's just really interesting to see Sam's journey and see what life is like when you actually successfully run away and how maybe it isn't as easy as you might think it is. Next up is the Shiloh series by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. There are 4 books in this series, and while I've never read the 4th one because that one came out way later, I read the first 3 a lot as a kid. This series follows a boy named Marty and a dog he has named Shiloh. In the first book, Marty comes across Shiloh when he's out loose. He ends up finding out that Shiloh belongs to a man in the neighborhood named Judd Travers, who isn't exactly a nice guy. Marty especially doesn't like the way Judd treats his dogs. So when Shiloh runs away again, Marty decides to hide him. He doesn't tell anybody, not even his family. And of course, Judd suspects him, and this brings Judd's wrath down on Marty and his family. Despite this, Marty keeps Shiloh hidden because he thinks it's the right thing to do. So this series is primarily about Marty and his love for this dog named Shiloh, and I just loved reading about that bond that a boy and his dog shared. I love seeing him struggle with what to do about Shiloh. He knows that Judd owns Shiloh, but at the same time, he doesn't think Shiloh is being treated well, so he's trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. And I think it's made even harder by the fact that he's lying to his family and has nobody that he can talk to about it. I've reread this book as an adult, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did when I was a kid, but like I said, when I was a middle schooler, I adored these books, and after reading them, I wanted my own Shiloh so badly. Because seeing Marty and Shiloh's relationship made me want to have a relationship like that of my own with a dog. Next up is the Wayside School series by Louis Sachar. In these books, we follow Mrs. Jewell's class. They go to Wayside School, and this school is built a little differently. Instead of being built horizontally, it was built vertically. So it is 30 stories in the air, and of course, Mrs. Jewell's class is on the 30th story. Each of the kids in Mrs. Jewell's class tends to have their own quirk, and of course, Wayside is a quirky school to begin with. So really, we're just following these kids in their adventures in this very quirky school. I adored this series. There's also a couple of companion books that I have read. I think one is like Sideways Arithmetic from Wayside School, and it's like you're adding letters together instead of numbers. And I remember being really into that book and trying to do math with letters instead of numbers. I really love how quirky all of the characters in these stories are, and funnily enough, Louis Sachar just released a new book in this series in the last year or so, like 25 years after the third book in this series, and I read that, and it was so nice to be back with all of my familiar characters in this familiar world. I just really love this series and these characters, and I'm totally willing to spend any time with them that Louis Sachar would like to give to me. And lastly is the My Teacher is an Alien series by Bruce Coville. In the first book, we follow a girl named Susan who realizes her teacher is an alien in disguise, and the only person who might believe her is a classmate, Peter. She has no idea why this alien is here, but she figures it can't be for any good reason, so she sets to find out what he's up to. So I remember reading this series for the first time in like second grade. Like, I was really young when I read this series for the first time, and I know that this series is one that I have read over and over and over again. I can remember my mom being annoyed with how many times I would take these books out of the library as a kid because I just adored this series. I've reread the whole series recently, and I still love this series. I love the characters. I love the world. I loved being back with these characters in this world and kind of getting to rediscover it. I think it's such an interesting idea that this girl realizes her teacher is an alien and has no idea what to do about it because she knows nobody is going to believe her. And yet it's really happening, and she's trying to figure out how to prove to everybody that this teacher is an alien and is probably not here for good reasons. So it was really probably my first introduction to like sci-fi books, and I think this is the reason I love sci-fi now. Like, I might not read sci-fi as much as some of the other genres, but when I do, I think you can trace my love for it right back to this series. So these are 5 middle grade books or series that I enjoyed as a middle grader. What is a book or series that you enjoyed when you were in middle grade? If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a balloon emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!